great to see you all here for the Gifts of God Sunday Talk. And I'm happy to join you with this focus on this section in the text we read today. And I thought it was pretty profound when I reread it. At first, it was kind of, we sort of read through it. It kind of went over our heads. And then I went back to it today and I was really looking at it. And there were some really beautiful passages. The title of it is The Substitute Reality. And then when I looked at it more closely and let it sink in, I got quite a lot more out of it than I did when we did the podcast. So I wanted to talk a little bit in the beginning about just how that action takes place in us, because that's often the case when we read the text. It kind of like first reading goes over our head. We get a few little tidbits, but it doesn't really sink in. And what is it we need to do for it to really affect us and really sink in? And often it takes 2, 3, maybe more time giving the attention to what it's saying, because our first response is, of course, from the intellect, and the intellect is actually the part of our mind we would like to transcend. We'd like to go above the intellect. And yes, intellectual understanding is important to a certain degree, but then there's a step we need to take that's beyond the intellectual understanding. Like maybe we need that in the beginning when we first read it, but then as we give the section more attention, we have to rise above the intellectual understanding. So that's kind of what I was doing today with this section that we read this morning, the substitute reality. And I went back and I wanted to revisit some of that in this talk. Just what does it mean, a substitute reality? And we don't want to be with the substitute reality. We want to be with the reality, right? I think we're clear enough about the Course in Miracles that we want to make the demands on ourselves to be with the full force of what it's offering, and it's trying to liberate us from all substitute realities and put us in touch with the one reality, right? So could we all kind of agree that's why we're studying it, to transcend this substitute? We don't want to substitute for love. We want the real thing. We don't want to substitute for the holy relationship. We want the real thing. And this section was talking quite a lot about that today, how we do substitute in the world this quote unquote reality. And then the extension of that is we would substitute special relationships for holy relationships. And that's another thing we need to kind of really understand, the depth of what does the Course mean when it's talking about a special relationship versus a holy relationship. So I think this section really went into that. And I was noticing when I looked at it again, how deep it was, and also how beautiful some of the passages are in this section. And I wanted to revisit some of those in the talk. So it starts out saying to substitute is to accept instead. And if you would but consider exactly what this entails, you would perceive at once how much at variance this is with the goal the Holy Spirit has given you and would accomplish for you. To substitute is to choose between, renouncing one aspect of the sonship in favor of the other. And for this special purpose, one is judged more valuable and the other is replaced by him. So Sandra was asking me, well, what does it mean by this substitute reality? And I think another thing that the Course distinguishes between is special relationships versus holy relationships. Well, and special relationships are something like this. Well, you have something that meets my need, and I'm in a relationship with you to meet that need. And when you cease to meet that need, then I don't want the relationship anymore. So it's a kind of what can I get from you type of relationship, rather than what can I give and what can we share and what can we exchange. So that's one level of a substitute. We substitute special relationships for holy relationships. Now, a holy relationship doesn't really have any needs. It's like, well, I have something inspiring, I have something happy, I have something beautiful to extend. And in that extension, it's like I don't have special people I extend that to. It's like whoever the Holy Spirit sends, it receives what I have to give. And that's a holy relationship. So I think we're all interested in how can we transform all of our relationships into these holy relationships. In the past few sections we've read about that, because the last chapter was very much about that, it was saying, well, you turn over the relationship to the Holy Spirit to use on your behalf to establish this holiness. And in so doing, you kind of give up your motives. You kind of say, okay, well, I can see this relationship was sort of founded on specialness, and I want to transform it. So in order to do that, I have to hand it over, so to speak, to like a higher reality, not a substitute reality. And in doing that, I'm like inviting the Holy Spirit to take it over and do the transformation for me. Because if left in my own motives, I'd probably just substitute one special thing for another special thing, and it would remain in that kind of special, relationship status. So by saying, well, I don't know what to do, I'm going to turn this over to the Holy Spirit, we're kind of giving up our motives and seeing what comes next. And that's not so easy for the ego to do, because the ego wants to maintain control, wants to maintain that it knows what outcome it wants, and therefore remain special. So what I was seeing in that was we don't like to surrender anything. We want to be in control. And in that need to control, it's like we're locked into all these special relationships. And if someone doesn't give us what we want, the thing was saying today that in a special relationship, you just trade one in for the other. Like you say, well, this person isn't giving me what I want. And then you go looking for that thing, that need to be fulfilled from someone else. So you trade one special relationship in for another special relationship. And now maybe your need is met, but it's still got the same basis of specialness that it had before. So you really didn't undo anything. You just increased your repertoire of special relationships. So this was very confronting, I think, because we had to look at, okay, well, where are we holding special relationships, and where are we having expectations, and where are we having special needs that we want other people to meet. And mostly we were looking at that in terms of the people we work with around the world, and organizers and people that we've known for years and we work with. And I think it's always a vigilance that everyone has to keep their relationships holy and not special. So I think it's good to look at those, do an inventory, do an inventory in your head of all your relationships, close and not so close, and in the past and in the present, and just kind of look at those and see where am I kind of falling short? Where am I making those relationships special? And even relationships where we have grievances and we end those relationships, those can still fall into this sort of special relationship category. So it's good to look at all these relationships that we have. So what I was seeing in this section, it was making clear a couple of points that I thought were really good. It said, the one emotion in which substitution is impossible is love. But then it says, fear involves substitution by definition, for it is love's replacement. Fear is both a fragmented and fragmenting emotion. It seems to take many forms, and each one seems to require a different form of acting out for satisfaction. While this appears to introduce quite variable behavior, a far more serious effect lies in the fragmented perception from which the behavior stems. No one is seen complete. The body is emphasized with special emphasis on certain parts and used as the standard for comparison of acceptance or rejection, for acting out a special form of fear. And then here's the line. It says, you who believe that God is fear made but one substitution. It has many forms because it was the substitution of illusion for truth, or fragmentation for wholeness. So really the one substitution we made in the beginning, and it's saying this is huge, it's the basis for all of our separation, is when we substituted fear for love. And then we lost kind of contact with the difference. Like, it says, well, the one emotion that doesn't have fear is love. So, but we've grown so accustomed to the fear and we've become so addicted to special relationships, we don't even notice that normal life, so to speak, is really racked with fear, and that almost all of our motives stem from this one mistake. So it was trying to make that clear, and it was saying, well, that's the one substitution you made in the beginning. That was your first substitution. You substituted fear for love, and then you projected this whole world out there that's just kind of a demonstration of that mistake. And then you have to keep making substitutes to kind of keep the fear at bay. So all of our relationships, most of them, have some kind of basis in this original mistake where we substituted fear for love. And then that got even projected onto God. Like, I remember growing up in my church, like I loved church when I was a little kid because I had some really good, wonderful Sunday school teachers. But then I got to a point when I was older in my teens, and this Sunday school teacher said, the beginning of wisdom is the fear of God. And I couldn't reconcile that with with these teachers I had when I was smaller who were kind of angelic, you know. We never even discussed fear. And then all of a sudden, I was supposed to associate God with fear, and it didn't, that didn't do it for me. And that's when I kind of lost hope in organized religion. And now the Course is saying, well, that mistake that we made and then projected onto God, that's the one big mistake. That's the one big substitution. And then we also project that onto our relationships. So we enter into relationships with this kind of underlying fear in us, and then we seek for others to fill our needs that will kind of liberate us from the fear, right? Oh, well, I don't have to fear about this because so-and-so is meeting that need for me. And then it becomes a special relationship with all the, codependent arrangements that we make in special relationships. So this is trying to say, well, you're looking for the source of the relationship externally. That was another beautiful part of this section, I thought. It made it really clear that when we look for something outside, we're in trouble. Let me see if I can find that. You may be very surprised to hear how very different reality is from what you see. You do not realize the magnitude of that one error when you substituted fear for love. It was so vast and so completely incredible that from it, a world of total unreality had to emerge. What else could come of it? Its fragmented aspects are fearful enough as you begin to look at them, but nothing you have seen begins to show you the enormity of the original error, which seemed to cast you out of heaven, to shatter knowledge into meaningless bits of disunited perceptions, and to force you to make further substitutions. That was the first projection of error outward. The world arose to hide it and became the screen on which it was projected and drawn between you and the truth. For truth extends inward, where the idea of loss is meaningless and only increase is conceivable. Now, that was the line that really struck me. It says, truth extends inward. Well, that gives us a bit of an indication that the holy relationship is something inward as well. We find the essence of the holy relationship inside of ourselves. It's not dependent on external conditions. And I think that's a very important point, because when you get into external conditions, that's where the needs come in, and that's where the expectations, can so-and-so meet this need for me? It's not being met. I'm in myself somehow. I'm putting a lot of emphasis on this external need, and then somebody out there is going to meet that need for me. And then, we don't look at the fact that internally, where we go within and we form the relationship within, the need doesn't exist. Therefore, we don't need the person to fulfill anything. We're whole, we're complete, we're everything God created within ourselves. Therefore, special relationships aren't necessary. And that's the beginning of the holy relationship, is when we turn around the focus, and it's not an external focus, now it's an internal focus, right? So the perfection of the relationship is already there and already inside of us. And we don't have to meet anybody's need. And they don't have to meet our need because it's already met by our Creator. So I had this kind of experience. It was really a happy one. Oftentimes we have the mantra breathing and people show up. I don't know how they show up. Never met them before, but all of a sudden there's somebody new on the mantra breathing, and somehow they found the link, and there they are. Well, there was this lady from Latvia, and we're going to be going to Latvia in a couple of weeks, so maybe she found out about us through our organizer there. But anyhow, this lady from Latvia showed up, and she's been coming for the past three mantra breathes. And what I noticed about her was her breathing was perfect. It's like what often happens in the mantra breathe is I put the mantra on, and it's for a whole hour. And some of you really dig it, and you have no problem breathing the whole time, the whole hour, and you're just grooving with the mantra, and you're breathing, and you're in the rhythm, and you just keep that up for a whole hour. But for those of you who do that, I'm the one watching everyone, right? So I see everybody on the screen, all 20 people or 25 people, whatever it is. And there are a lot of fidgety people that do mantra breathing. They can't sustain a whole hour of attention. It's almost impossible. So maybe they get up every 20 minutes and they go to the bathroom, or they clunk around, and thank goodness I have the sound turned off, or it'd be really noisy. But I can see their fidgeting, and they're not relaxed, and they're not really getting in the rhythm of it, right? So I'm watching this whole drama take place. Well, this lady from Latvia, God bless her, she must have been trained very well by some of the people there that we know. Her breathing was perfect. She was in such a state of peace. And, she even had the camera set up just perfectly. A lot of people, they have their camera facing the ceiling, and they're not even in the picture, and you can't tell if they're really breathing. But her camera was just perfectly set, and she was just laying there and just breathing deep in, out for the whole hour. And so I noticed this about her. And then when we were sharing our intentions this week, she said, like last week, I had the COVID, and I had this cough, and it was just really like stubborn, and I couldn't get rid of it. And I'd had it for like a couple of months, and I just didn't know how I could just let go of this final bit of whatever it was I had. And I did the mantra breathing last week. And on Monday, I woke up and I didn't have a trace of this cough. So not only was she breathing perfectly, but she had like the perfect testimonial that the mantra breathing made a difference in her life, right? So I'm just kind of in awe of this gal from Latvia. And it wasn't like I was trying to meet anybody's need or they had a need, but it was just like the mantra breathing and the Holy Spirit just kind of took over and gave her some solution. And not only that, it was beautiful for me to just watch her breathe, because she was holding the space so perfectly for everyone else. I thought, well, gosh, if we had 20 people breathing like that, we could change the world, So it was a good experience. And I'm just sharing it because I really felt that I connected some bit there where it was a holy relationship And the beauty of it was coming to me to be a witness to, and that's how it should be. This kind of inner beauty that you witness with people in doing this work. So that was my little demonstration. And then today I was reading some of these really beautiful sections in this thing on the substitute. And it's talking about giving your relationships over to the Holy Spirit, right? And it's talking about letting go of all these sort of special conditions that you've made, these underlying, expectations, fears, reasons, motives that you have for relationships, and giving them over to the Holy Spirit. And so it says, when you seem to see some twisted form of the original error rising to frighten you, say only, God is not fear, but love, and it will disappear. The truth will save you. It has not left you to go out into the mad world and so depart from you. Inward is sanity. Insanity is outside yourself. There it is again. It's like beckoning us to look within to find the sanity of our holy relationship. And that within us is all relationships, not just the particular people that we have in our life that we're interacting with, but all people. It's like inward is sanity. Insanity is outside. You but believe it is the other way, that truth is outside and error and guilt within. Your little senseless substitutions touched with insanity and swirling lightly off on a mad course like feathers dancing insanely in the wind have no substance. They fuse and merge and separate, and in shifting and totally meaningless patterns that need not be judged at all. To judge them individually is pointless. Their tiny differences in form are no real differences at all. None of them matters. That they have in common and nothing else. Then it says, let them all go, dancing in the wind. The Holy Spirit takes you gently by the hand and retraces with you your mad journey outside yourself, leading you gently back to the truth and safety within. He brings all your insane projections and wild substitutions that you have placed outside you to the truth. He reverses the course of insanity and restores you to reason. Okay, so when he says reverses, we have to get clear what that is. It's like we are in the momentum of finding meaning outside, right? So our relationships are judged in terms of external conditions that are being met outside in the world. And then we sort of do a hierarchy of relationships, some more special than others, some are meeting more of our needs than others. So we have this kind of hierarchy, and that's all external. And he's saying that that's where the insanity lies, and you have to reverse that momentum of looking outside yourself to finding the meaning inside. He reverses the course of insanity and restores you to reason. In your relationship with your brother, where he has taken charge of everything at your request. Okay, so that's an important line there. Have we requested the Holy Spirit to take over our relationships? That's like a simple question we can all ask ourselves. Not a complicated question. Have we turned our relationships over to the Holy Spirit? Yes or no? If not, then why not? There's some part of faith, there's some part of trust we don't have if we still want to stay in control, right? So if we still want to stay in control and we think we know best and we think that we can establish these kind of holy relationships on our own, right, with our own conditions, then there's something a little off with that picture, according to the Course, because it's asking us to hand the thing over, hand the relationship over to the Holy Spirit, which is basically saying, I'm going to hand this relationship over to the unknown. And the unknown knows better than me. And that's like something the ego never wants to do. Never, first of all, doesn't want to accept that I'm being guided by the unknown and that some intuition or some higher truth can come through the unknown. But that's where it is. When it says Holy Spirit, that's like, yes, we get to know the Holy Spirit by practicing handing it over, and then we witness the demonstrations or the results of, and therefore we start to trust more when we can witness the good results, right, of handing it over. But in the beginning, it's like disconcerting. We're handing it over to something we don't know. And that's saying, well, okay, the Holy Spirit's going to lead you inward, not external. That's one action. It's taking you, it's reversing the direction and coming inward. So I think it's important to see that. In your relationship with your brother, where he has taken charge of everything at your request, he has set the course inward to the truth you share. In the mad world outside you, nothing can be shared, but only substituted. And sharing and substituting have nothing in common in reality. Within yourself, you love your brother with a perfect love. Here is holy ground. These lines are so beautiful. Within yourself, you love your brother with a perfect love. Here is holy ground in which no substitution can enter, and where only the truth in your brother can abide. Here you are joined in God as much together as you are with him. The original error has not entered here, nor ever will. Here is the radiant truth to which the Holy Spirit has committed your relationship. Let him bring it here, where you would have it be. Give him but a little faith in your brother to help him show you that no substitute you made for heaven can keep you from it. Wow, when I read that, I thought, not even Shakespeare could have come up with poetry that beautiful. The language of the Course has such a poetic power that if we really read it for what it is, and we let that beauty come into us, it's impossible that we would not be inspired, or it's impossible that we would not want to turn our relationships over to the Holy Spirit to bless, because it tells us what we're going to find. Yes, it's like turning it over to the unknown, but once you do that, it describes in the language what to expect you're going to find. And that language itself is inspiring. People say, oh, the text, it's too difficult, it's too this, it's too that. I don't know, after years of study, if that's true. I think what it is the text is very confronting. and we don't want to be confronted. The ego doesn't want to be confronted. So therefore, we don't go those extra steps to confront our ego that would dissolve it. And then the clarity comes in of what the Holy Spirit's going to give us once we've taken that step above the ego. And so we don't allow ourselves to go through that process. And that's what people really mean when they say, oh, the text is too difficult. No, it just means they're unwilling to go through the process where they allow their ego to be confronted and dissolved. And that's what I've found about the Course. It's not that it's difficult, it's just that it's very confronting to the ego. And most people don't want to go there. And you can't translate it into, oh, well, it gave me, studying the Course in Miracles gave me more money in the bank. Well, it might, but maybe not. And should it be judged on that criteria? Like a lot of the personal growth gurus now are saying, well, everything has to be monetized. And if you don't have 50,000 followers and your actions aren't producing, millions of dollars in the bank, then your spiritual, force is weak, So that's kind of the language that's out there now. And I don't know if that's true, according to the Course. How do you measure beauty? How do you measure the truth of a holy relationship? It may not be measurable in dollars and cents. So that's where I am with it. And then when I read things in the text like that, I mean, just the poetry of it can change your life. In you, there is no separation, and no substitute can keep you from your brother. Your reality was God's creation and has no substitute. You are so firmly joined in truth that only God is there, and He would never accept something else instead of you. He loves you both equally and as one. And as He loves you, so you are. You are not joined together in illusions, but in the thought so holy and so perfect that illusions cannot remain to darken the holy place in which you stand together. God is with you, my brother. Let us join in Him in peace and gratitude, and accept His gift as our most holy and perfect reality, which we share in Him. In you, there is no separation. No substitute can keep you from your brother. Your reality was God's creation and has no substitute. You are so firmly joined in truth that only God is there, and He would never accept something else instead of you. He loves you both equally and as one. So there you have the holy relationship, pretty well defined. God doesn't distinguish between sons of God that He likes better than other sons of God. So why would we? That would be special. That would be a special relationship, Some relationships we value more than other relationships. And that would be special. Now, we all have our talents, so to speak, our strong points, and we do certain things better than other things. And that all kind of falls into place. But we have to also see that at some level, everyone is deserving of total freedom, total love, total forgiveness. And we can't judge anything or anyone. You know, I had a recent kind of a realization. I was going through my iPhotos, and we have a lot of photos, man. I don't know, how does Apple keep them all straight? There's like, I don't know, 30,000 photos somewhere. How are they all there? Anyhow, I'm going through photos, and some of them are in groupings, right? And some of the groupings are, well, India Quest photos, Bali Quest photos, you know, photos in Washington, photos in Nashville, you know, so you get these groupings of photos, right? Well, so I'm looking at the India Quest photos, and you know, all the people that have come over the years. There's like, you know, all the years, different India Quests, who were there on the 2016 India Quest. They're all there, and like maybe 100 photos for that year, right? And all the people, and they're all getting their head shaved, and they're all in the, you know, fire ceremony. So I'm looking at these photos, and then I'm seeing, well, yeah, that person came 10 years ago and we haven't seen them since, or this person came and they had a little bit of trouble and they were a bit difficult for us, but there they are, right? So I'm going through these photos and I'm seeing, oh, okay, there's this lady who came maybe, I don't know, 6-7 years ago, and haven't seen her since, but I had some exchanges with her quite a lot after the India Quest. And you know, there are certain people we know, and I'm sure you've met them, and you probably have one or two of these kind of people in your life where they are totally into victim consciousness, right? You know what I mean when I say victim consciousness. It's like, everybody did it to me. Oh, it was this who did it to me, and this person did this, and this person did this. And no matter what I said to her, I just could not get her off of it, right? I just could not show her that, well, there was some pre-existing frequency or thought you had that attracts these things. So every time something went bad in her life, it was pointing the finger, and somebody else was responsible for it. No matter what I did, I just could not get her off it. Could not. And maybe I tried for 3-4 years, and sometimes I'd even have, you know, actual conversations on the phone, and it would be always the same thing. Somebody did this, and my boss is this, and they don't do this for me at my workplace. So finally, I just got fed up. And I just said, I need a break from this person. You know, I just really need a break. I'm not getting through. It's not making a difference. And I feel like I'm spinning my wheels and blah, blah, blah. So I just kind of like had it. And I said, you know, if you don't get off this victim thing, we just can't talk anymore. I just kind of cut it off, right? Well, so I'm going through the India Quest photos, and I see this person there, right? Oh yeah, there she is. And you know, she actually looked wonderful. It was like maybe the India Quest was the highlight of her life. She actually rose to meet it, and just her inner beauty just came pouring through, right? And I could see this in her, like that's the real self, right? That's her real self. So I don't know what possessed me. I hadn't talked to her in maybe 3-4 years. I just sent that photo, you know, this photo of her on the India Quest. She had shaved her head, She was so beautiful. She was so radiant. I just couldn't help to send this photo of her. So I did. And then I heard back and she said, "Oh yeah, well, my brother passed away and I got this inheritance coming to me. So it's very possible I'll be able to come to India on the India Quest next year in 2025. I've got the money." So I'm saying to myself, well, who am I to say no? And who am I to say people can't finally get off it, right? So it was just this, I don't know where it's going to lead, but I guess the reason I'm sharing it is we're all going to have these testy people in our life. And they're there for a reason, for us to be tested and for us to be bugged by them and for us to have this, challenge. And sometimes it's a big challenge. So I just, when I read that thing, like, what was it? God does not condemn, and God does not make any differences. Let's see. God, in your reality, was God's creation and has no substitutes. He loves you both equally and as one. I mean, you could take that line right there and write it on a card and stick it on your refrigerator. He loves you both equally as one. And any difficult person you have in your life that's challenging, just when you bring them to mind, read that one line. He loves you both as one. So I'm just pretty challenged, and but I'm somehow, it's getting through to me that the Course gives us miracles. It's a Course in Miracles. Well, what's the miracle? It could be one sentence, and then our whole mindset is shifted, our whole mindset is turned around. Like there was something when I was going through those iPhotos, all the India quests, right? Where did they go? Where did they go? Oh, I'm glad they're gone. I hope they never come back again. I was going through all these photos, and then I saw her and I thought, oh, yeah, she did actually pretty well on the India quest, and it might have been the highlight of her life. And I'm going to send her those couple of photos, and it probably brightened her day. And then I heard, oh yeah, her life's going a little better. She's got some money now. She got an inheritance, and okay. So you don't know. We just don't know how things unfold. And why are we going to substitute something less than that? And I think that's our challenge, that yes, relationships are challenging and they go through different phases. But ultimately, what's that lesson? I'm trying to think of it. A happy outcome to all things is sure. Yeah. I think it's like 293 or 4. A happy outcome to all things is sure. It's 292. A happy outcome to all things is sure. Well, what's that mean? What would the happy outcome look like to you? With applying it to this person that's difficult. Yeah. I think first it shows you have no idea the purpose of these relationships. Your ego would judge it this way or that way, of course. And don't make yourself wrong for that one, because everybody does it. It's like you got an ego, and the nature of an ego is to judge stuff. Now, we can catch ourselves and not fall into the trap But once we observe it in ourselves, don't make yourself guilty for that, because that's just what the ego does. Its function is to measure and judge and make sure you're putting, the right brand of yogurt in your shopping cart. Like it's got a reason to be there, and it's okay. But also watch it, because when it comes to these higher levels, God accepts us all as one and loves us both as one. The ego, you have to go beyond it. You have to rise above it. And you don't even know why these people are in your life and what tests they're giving you. And yeah. So gladly accept the test. And then Jesus tells us a happy outcome to all things is sure. Just stick with it. Don't throw in the towel. Stick with it. And that doesn't mean give up all boundaries. You got to have some boundaries. So at some point with this gal, I had to tell her, look, we've been on this conversation for a couple of years now, and I can't get you beyond it. And you're just stuck in victim consciousness. And I'm not willing to go on about this same issue. So either you have to shift or we have to end this conversation. And she wasn't willing to shift, so we had to end the conversation. And so it was dormant for a couple of years until I sent the photo. Now, we'll see what unfolds, but maybe there's a new call of freedom here. I don't know. India Quest has a way of shifting people's minds around. So if she comes for the second time, who knows what'll happen, but that possibility has to be there. And it's a joyful thing to look at. So let me just look at this, see if there's anything I missed in this section. It's such a beautiful section. Heaven is restored to all the sonship through your relationship. For in it lies the sonship, whole and beautiful, safe in your love. Heaven has entered quietly, for all illusions have been gently brought unto the truth in you, and love has shined upon you, blessing your relationship with truth. God in his whole creation have entered it together. How lovely and how holy is your relationship with the truth shining upon it. Heaven beholds it and rejoices that you have let it come to you. And God himself is glad that your relationship is as it was created. The universe within you stands with you, together with your brother, and heaven looks with love on what is joined in it, along with its creator. Wow. Where are you going to find words that beautiful? Where are you going to find words that describe the holy relationship like that? It's like we're so grateful to have the Course in Miracles, and we kind of scratch our head and say, wow, what did we do to merit this in this lifetime? That here it is, and the clarity is there. And then, all the practical things we have to go through to get it are going to be there too. The relationship with all those people that are stuck in victim consciousness are going to be part of it. And we're going to have to deal with it. And then what part of we are still victims? They're just mirrors to some deeper part of ourselves that we haven't let go of. So it's beautiful then. I let forgiveness rest upon all things, for thus forgiveness will be given me. And all these relationships with difficult people that we have, we let the forgiveness rest upon that. And we don't substitute anything else. And we let the Holy Spirit turn our special relationships into holy ones. And we're not deprived of anything. You can still have all your special relationships you want, and then start turning them over to the Holy Spirit, and they'll be transformed into holy ones, and then we'll all be happy. So, hey, this was good. Yeah, I didn't quite know if that was okay to go into that section, but I think sometimes when we need to really dig deeper than the podcast goes. And this talk, I think, was a good way to do that. So thank you all for coming. And yeah, we'll get this up when we can.